Hello, welcome back to Ink and Fig. My name is Alex, and today we are finally doing the mid-year freakout tag. I am struggling to believe that it is the 2nd of July today. It's been a year as it has been and has continued to be for the last several years. I have had, to date, my most successful reading year. I am freaking out in a good way, I think. It is unbelievable to me that I have managed to read 25 books completely to date. That is well past the halfway point for where I hoped to be. My goal for 2022 is to read 36 books, and I am halfway to 50. What? So I'm very proud of myself, needless to say. So let's talk about what I've read so far, and then talk about some of the things that I'm panicking about still needing to read this year. So, question number 1. What is the best book you've read this year? I kind of spoiled this in my June wrap-up, but the best book I have read this year is If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha. This book is so good! Oh my goodness, if you have not read this yet, you absolutely need to. It hits every single point for me. It is engaging, the characters are amazing, the writing is incredible. It sucks you in, it has an excellent story, huge meaning, and just, it's a gorgeous story. And I loved every minute of it. I loved every single character in this book. They all had their own various personalities, but I thought they were all fantastic, and just the writing really hit the vibe. Excellent, excellent book. Definitely go give this one a read. All right, question 2 is the best sequel you have read this year. I went into this question thinking I haven't read any sequels this year at all. That is incorrect. I did read sequels, and I do have a favorite, and I will show it to you in a moment. I bet you can already guess what it is. So I have read 3 sequels this year. One of them that I just finished was Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo, which was a good book. I enjoyed meeting new characters in that world, but for the reasons that I kind of explained in my June wrap-up, it didn't quite hit the vibe. It was just a little bit too heteronormative, a little bit too white, a little bit too, all of that not-so-good stuff, as it were. One of the other sequels that I read this year was The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. That book was excellent. However, the reason that I did not choose it as my best sequel is because I thought the first one was better. I'm gonna speak ahead of myself here. That is also true for the best sequel that I chose. Both of the first books were in fact better, in my opinion. However, with this one, I think it was markedly not as good as the first one. The 5th season absolutely slaps. If you haven't read it, get on it. It's so good. But I think part of what made the 5th season really good was because we were doing a lot of messing around with timelines. I won't expound on that much more because if I do, I'm going to end up spoiling the book for you if you haven't read it yet, but that was a huge part of the first book, and I think that was part of what made it so engaging. And then because we kind of caught up with ourselves in Obelisk Gate, that aspect wasn't there. That said, the book was still masterfully crafted and a beautiful, beautiful story, and I am so looking forward to finishing that series. So the best sequel that I read this year was Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This was the very first book that I read in 2022, and frankly, I think it was fantastic. The reason that this beat out Obelisk Gate, I need to quantify this, Crooked Kingdom was, in my opinion, just as good as Six of Crows, but in an extremely different way. So Six of Crows had that big kind of flash and bang appeal that comes with being a heist book. Ultimately, they're robbing people. If you haven't read Six of Crows before, they're robbing people, and that is very cool. It's very Ocean's 11. In fact, in the author interview in the back, she said that she was inspired by Ocean's 11, which, it shows. So it had a lot of that, fantastical kind of suspend your disbelief crime aspect to it. Crooked Kingdom still had aspects of that, but this book was basically where shit hit the fan in real life. So the characters in here finally had to go from, doing all of this cool stuff to basically just trying to survive. So I think that this book really captured their humanity and pulled that story back down to earth, which ultimately I think rounded out all of the various character arcs that we were going for in Six of Crows, and with all of those Crow characters, whom I love so much. So for that reason, that is why I chose Crooked Kingdom as my favorite sequel, but I will say Obelisk Gate was still fantastic, and if you have not read the Broken Earth trilogy, absolutely get on that. The next question is the new release that you haven't read yet but you wanted to. This one I talked about also in a previous video, and that is On Rotation by Dr. Shirley Nobuobi. This book, the reason that I haven't read it yet, even though I was like screeching about how excited I was to read it, is because it's in the mail. It's a very anticlimactic reason, but it's a reason nonetheless. So it's coming, it is on its way, it is supposed to arrive this week. So is it going to work its way into my TBR this month? Probably, because honestly, I cannot wait to read it. I'm so stoked. I just need to get it into my little gremlin hands. The next question is your most anticipated release for the rest of the year. I have chosen two. Because I am indecisive, as we've seen. So the first one, which I think is going to be on a lot of people's lists, is Babel by R.F. Kuang. It is dark academia, it is critical of colonialism, it is about knowledge, and about schools, and about language, and I'm just so stoked to get my hands on that. However, I want to see if I can get my hands on the UK edition, because I like the cover better, which is like, if you know, right? Babel is coming out on August 23rd of this year, which is my partner's birthday, and I'm gonna be in Montreal, so that's gonna be exciting, but I cannot wait to get my hands on it. My second pick for this question is a book called The Witch in the Well by Camilla Bruce. This is coming out on October 4th, I believe, and this book sounds incredible. It is a dark thriller set in Norway. I love Scandinavian horror. I think it's really good. Now, admittedly, this is not being advertised as horror, but I think it's still going to have horror elements, which are my favorite thing of all time. The next question is your biggest disappointment of 2022, and is it any shock? It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. The reason that my hopes were so high for this book was because TikTok has been screeching about this, and everyone's reading it, everyone is absolutely waxing poetic over this book, and I didn't like it. I mean, I've gone over this ad nauseum at this point, but basically I think this book was written in a very childish voice, and it didn't provide what, in my opinion, is proper reverence for the subject matter. Like, we deal with domestic violence, we deal with various kinds of abuse, and it was done with what I would frame as flippancy, and I did not appreciate that at all. I think I gave this book a 3-star, might have been a little bit higher. I don't think it was lower than that, because honestly, I think the end saved it. But even so, I don't want to say that I will never get the hours back that I put into this book, but I will never get the hours back that I put into this book. The next question is an interesting one. It's which book was the biggest surprise of the year so far? And interestingly enough, I'm going to say The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I don't know how I managed to not get spoiled for this book, but I managed to completely avoid spoilers, so the ending of this book was a huge shock to me. And once again, the ending saved the book. This was almost another biggest disappointment of the year, because frankly, this book was talked up more than I think it deserved to be, but I think the ending really saved it. It brought the whole story together in a very interesting way, and in a way that I wasn't expecting. I really appreciated the way that he crafted the story by the end of it. I still have, like, some issues with it in terms of the personality of the main character. I kind of couldn't tell whether the misogyny in here was on purpose, or if the author's just like that. And coming out the other end of this book, I think the jury might still be out on that one. I think it might have been on purpose. I'll put it that way. But the ending of this was extremely surprising, so if you want a bit of a roller coaster, highly recommend The Silent Patient if you have not read it yet. The next question is, who is your favorite new author? This is her debut novel. My favorite new author is Frances Cha. As I keep mentioning, this book was absolutely fantastic, and it was fantastic to the point where I really want to read everything that Frances Cha ever comes out with after this. I absolutely love the way that she crafted this story. Her narrative voice is, in my opinion, flawless, and she builds an exceptional character. Hers is one of the first pieces of writing that I have read in first person and enjoyed 100,000%. So I'm very impressed with her writing style, and I absolutely want to read everything else that she has to write. Next question is, who is your newest fictional crush? I have, once again, two answers for this, and they are very different characters. I'm gonna preface it with that. First of all, my actual newest fictional crush is Miho from If I Had Your Face. She is an artist. She is a little bit naive. She's dealing with a lot of darkness following a traumatic event in her young adult life, which I absolutely felt in a lot of ways. I really empathized with her on that journey, and she just seems like a really cool and interesting person, and yeah, definitely high-key crushing on Miho. And the second one, who is less new, but still kind of new to me, is Kaz Brekker from the Six of Crows duology. People who know me from real life know that I have a bit of a problem with Hiruma Yoichi from Eyeshield 21. Hiruma and Kaz are almost exactly the same person, so I think it was inevitable. He's just so gloriously messed up. Shocking no one, Kaz Brekker. Following up on that one really quickly, your newest favorite character, that's gonna be Murderbot from All Systems Red by Martha Wells. He's such a cool character. Like, he's going through a really interesting bit of character development wherein he is coming to terms with his, for lack of a better word, humanity, coming to terms with his sentience, and like, he's so funny. I don't know whether or not, so like, I'm talking about him as though he's a real person. I don't know whether or not he intends to be funny, but he is very funny. He just like passes the vibe check. I just want to like hang out with him, except he wouldn't be okay with that, so like, you know, just appreciate from afar. He's definitely my new favorite character. Ooh, next one, a book that made you cry. That will be Gumbo Yaya by Oriel Marie. This book hits directly in the feels. Like, it's a poetry book, so it's going to be very rawly emotional, and like, that's absolutely true here. It deals with extremely, extremely heavy subject matter, and it celebrates beauty and resilience, and it honors sadness, which just like, oh my god, it's everything. It's so good. If you need something that's very cathartic for the state of things right now, if you need to find empathy, I'm looking at my fellow white people, if you need to find empathy, this book will help you get there. Just if you want to read something beautiful, go read this poetry collection. It's so good. Very sad, very heavy, but very good. And to follow that up, a book that made you happy. That's going to be Karamo's self-titled memoir by Karamo Brown. This book just like, it felt like sitting down with a friend and having a really good talk over coffee. Like a really deep, meaningful, profound talk over coffee. One of those talks, you know? And I just thought it was gorgeous. It was stunningly written in the way that it really felt like he was speaking to me while I was reading this. And like, he just seems like such a beautiful person, and he's really grown from the struggles that he's had in his life. And I just absolutely love when people can overcome stuff like that and become better people. So I'm so happy that he got to have that journey and that he's still going on that journey, because you can see even past the end of this book, because this book was written well before the pandemic, like he is just thriving and growing and making his dreams come true right now. Like he just got signed for his own talk show, which is his like life goal. So just, I can't wait to see where else he goes in life. And I really hope he writes more books, because I would love to have this experience again. It was just so beautiful, so lovely. The next question is, what is the most beautiful book you have acquired this year? This is one I have not yet read, but I purchased it, and frankly, it's gorgeous. It is The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. This, just look at the cover. Oh my god. Like, gold on black, I think might be my favorite thing of all time. And just like the celestial geometric pattern on this cover just absolutely slaps. I've heard mixed things about this book. It seems to be one of those you either love it or you hate it kind of books. So I'm interested to see which camp I fall into. This is probably going to get read in September, because it feels like a very September vibe book. So I hope that that lines up with what my my TBR game has in mind for me, but I'm gonna see if I can shoehorn it in there. All right, and the last big contentious question: what books do I still need to read this year? Need is such a loaded term, particularly when you're talking about your hobbies. Like, you don't need to do anything for your hobbies, you just need to have fun. That said, I do have some things I'd like to read by the end of the year. My list for this is long and sprawling, and I was actually planning on doing an entire video about this, because I never did sort of a 2022 goals video, seeing as I started this channel in the middle of the year. So I am going to be doing a video coming out later this month purely about the books that I want to get to in the rest of the year, but I do have a small collection here for you. The first book on my stack, this is in absolutely no particular order, the first book on my stack is Rise and Ruin by Leigh Bardugo, because again, I want to get this Shadow and Bone series done so that I can launch into King of Scars, because I just want to get back to my girl Nina and see where her life goes following the events of Crooked Kingdom. The next book that I'm going to tell you about is The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin. This is the last book in the Broken Earth trilogy. As I mentioned earlier, the Broken Earth trilogy absolutely slaps, and I cannot wait to finish it, because I would love to know how and or if we make it out of the situation that she has set up in these books. So I'm excited to see whether or not, you know, humanity gets to live through this. And finally, I know one of my friends has been waiting for this. So hi, I see you. I love you, and I'm sorry. My last book that I'm going to tell you about is The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. I have not finished the Poppy War trilogy yet. I haven't finished this book yet. I've been stuck. This is the front of the book. So I've been stuck at about a third of the way through this for a very long time. I have borrowed this book from my friend, which is why I am apologizing. And I've been reading it for a year and a half. And this is as far as we've gotten. So I have several prompts on my TBR game that are specifically designed to make me finish this book. I want to finish it by the end of the year, because 2 years of having borrowed someone's book is a long time, and frankly, it's getting embarrassing. It's a good book. It's a good book. It's just one of those ones that's like very heavy, and like epic fantasy isn't necessarily my thing, is what I'm finding out. It's a very sprawling story. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of politics. And I'm like, real world politics is bad enough. Like, fantasy politics is just a whole other kettle of fish that I'm not necessarily here for. However, the writing in this is gorgeous, and I want to finish her series. So I'm hoping to get through this by the end of the year so that I can give this back to my friend and then eventually read the last book in the series, the name of which I do not remember because I haven't gotten there yet. We're gonna get through it. It's gonna get done. I know you're watching this. I am getting this back to you by the end of the year. You can hold me to that. Alright, and that is my 2022 mid-year freakout tag. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this was satisfying for you. It was very interesting for me to sort of look at my read books in a different way and see them sort of through this lens. I'm going to go put all of these away, and I'm going to continue on with my July TBR, and hopefully at some point along this journey find some new favorites, find some new disappointments, find some new favorite characters, and we'll see where we end up by the end of the year. Definitely go ahead and follow me on all of my social media at Ink and Fig. I am most active over on Instagram, so definitely go follow me there. Feel free to pop a like, comment, and a subscribe down below. We're getting out fantastic new content all the time. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite read was of this year and who your new favorite characters are that you've met. Like, I don't think that the characters in these books get enough love at the end of the day because we're all talking about, like, the book as a whole, but frankly, these characters are also quite moving. So definitely let me know who your favorite characters are down below, if you have any new favorites that you found this year, if you had any massive flops this year, and all of that good stuff, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!